Hello everyone, I'm your hostess with the mostest 8-second gaming, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the Season 23 Split to Legend tier list. I've had some time to actually play around with the legends that have received some changes, and I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on things, so let's dive in. But just quickly, if you are looking to take your Apex skill to the next level, then you have to check out the GameLeap website right now. Over there, our top level coaches are putting out the best, most highly informative content to make you literally the best player you could possibly be. We've helped a bunch of people already with our hundreds of guides covering legend guides, gun guides, VOD reviews, positioning guides, mentality guides, aim guides, literally everything. And you could be the next person that we help out hit a new peak rank, so click the link in the description, pick yourself up a membership, and start to improve today. But okay, with that out of the way, let's hop into things. And the legend meta is kind of all over the place right now. Legends are good, but they're not being seed played, and some bad legends are still being seed played. It's kind of a weird state right now. So let's hop into the tier list and talk about the D tier first, which I used to call the Mirage tier, but he's not in here anymore. It's just Ballistic, so maybe we gotta rename it. But yeah, sticking down at the very bottom is still Ballistic. He's just not a good character. He doesn't really help out his team other than his ultimate. He doesn't really see a lot of play, and his kit just isn't good in the game right now. His kit does have the potential to be super overpowered, but I think that's why Respawn refuses to touch him at all, because if they kind of tweak him a little bit, he's going to be super overpowered. He's going to take over the meta. But if they don't touch him, then he just stays in this like really weird spot where he's just useless and his kit really doesn't do a whole lot. But until they pull the trigger and actually make him a broken legend, he's going to stay in this tier. So with that covered, let's move into the next tier, which is the C tier, and there are actually 6 legends find themselves here. We've got Crypto, Pathfinder, Fuse, Octane, Seer, and Vantage. Now, I don't think it comes as a surprise to see Crypto here. He was a really strong legend last season when he had the invisibility. He broke everyone's ultimates. He just was in a really strong spot. And Respawn said, hey, you know what? That's a little bit too overpowered. That's not really what Crypto's supposed to do. So we're going to tune him down a little bit. And now he's in this C tier state where he still does have some usefulness. And if you are playing like a hard zone team comp, he can still be very good, especially in some end games. But for the most part, he just doesn't have the same toolbox kit that he used to have, and he's gone back to really being just a super niche legend that doesn't really see play in the meta. Like Ballistic, Crypto's kit does have the capability, like we have seen, to be super overpowered and super broken, but right now Respawn doesn't really want him to be in the meta, so they did nerf him a little bit, and now he's down in the C tier. But now we can talk about Pathfinder, and oh my god, I've never seen a harder fall from grace. Pathfinder was in a decent spot. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know why Respawn hit him with such hard nerfs, but the nerf to his grapple and the nerf to his ultimate is just insane. If they just tweaked the ultimate, Pathfinder would still be like an A tier legend. He would still have a decent amount of pick rate, and he'd still be fine in a lot of different team comps. But the fact that they nerfed the ultimate and also nerfed the grapple cooldown, a 30-second cooldown on his grapple, is insane. So you have a weakened ultimate, you have a weakened grapple, you have a massive hitbox. There's just so many things going against Pathfinder that there's no other way to put him other than a C tier legend. But also find themselves in the C tier is Fuse. Now, Fuse is still just, again, in a really random spot where his kit does have potential, but it just doesn't do what you want it to do. His knuckle clusters aren't scary enough to actually make people run away from them or to force them into spots that Fuse wants to force them into. And his ultimate is just so lackluster. The mother load doesn't deploy fast enough, so if you're around Fuse, you just have to run away and get out of the flames before they actually activate, and every character can do that. But if you happen to not be able to get out of the flames, most of the characters in the meta have a way to deal with that. They can either hunker down inside and make it so Fuse can't really deal with them while they're inside, like a Gibraltar bubble, a lifeline ultimate, something like that, or they have a way to get out of it themselves or help their team get out of it, like a Loba bracelet or an Octane jump pad or anything like that. So when most of the legends can just deal with your kit by running out of it, and that's basically all they have to do, there's no place that I can put you anywhere but the C tier. He still does have some usefulness, that's why I'm putting him in C tier, not D tier, but until he does see a little bit more play in the meta, I don't think I can put him anything higher. But next up we have Octane, and Octane is just the epitome of a selfish legend. Octane does what Octane wants to do, and that is it. He doesn't have any team usefulness. He doesn't have any like play around an actual team team comp. An Octane that is a good Octane with the movement techniques and everything like that can be very frustrating to play against. But for the most part, an Octane isn't actually going to be useful in a team comp over a different legend like a Lifeline, a Gibraltar, a Newcastle, Horizon, a Loba, something like that. There's so many different options out there, and Octane just is not the play. And I know that some people that are just the movement gods are going to be frowning up at this, but seriously, if you actually take away the movement techniques of the game that only like the small minority, like the 0.00001% of the population can do, if you take those movement techniques away, what does Octane really do? Nothing. C tier. Now, another legend in the C tier is Seer. Now, Seer is one of the ones that I was really having trouble putting somewhere on the tier list, because I'm not saying that Seer is a bad character, because scans are always going to be useful in fights. Having wall hacks is always a good thing, but Seer just doesn't seem like he's the best pick in the current meta. Everything seems to be a little bit too fast for Seer. Seer wants to have time to set up his ultimate, set up the tactical, do everything that he needs to do, have a little bit of time to use his heartbeat sensor, and everything is either push or bunker, and that's not what Seer is good at dealing with. Seer is really good at dealing with kind of like these mid-rangey fights where he can scan people out, throw his ultimate down, get a little bit more information, and go off of that. And right now, the meta just doesn't favor it, so Seer does kind of seems like a C tier legend to me. But I'd like to hear your opinions in the comments down below. And the last legend in C tier is Vantage. Now, Vantage's sniper rifle is still very strong. It is an absolute beast when you actually have the bullets for it. But with the ultimate accelerants receiving a little bit of a nerf so that they're purple instead of blue and they're a little bit harder to find, it isn't as likely as a Vantage is going to have a full inventory of them, so they're not going to be getting the full usefulness out of their sniper rifle. They're going to have to play around it a little bit harder, and they're not going to be able to spam shots out, which is a huge nerf to Vantage's kit because she wants to use that sniper rifle most of the time. When picking a loadout on Vantage, you're picking a loadout around her sniper rifle built in. You're playing around that because that is your main weapon. So not being able to use that all the time isn't a good thing, and that's why I have her in C tier. But next up, we can move on into the B tier legends, and there are 7 legends find themselves here. We have Bangalore, Catalyst, Revenant, Mirage, Rampart, Valkyrie, and Wraith. Now, first off, we have Bangalore, and she's been seeing a little bit of an ebb and flow inside her kit and inside her usefulness. Right now, she's gone back to being a very basic, very balanced character. It was a really hard Bangalore meta for a few seasons. They've kind of tuned it around a little bit, and they've changed a couple of the other characters, so now Bangalore doesn't see as much play and isn't as useful. That's not to say that she isn't useful, though, because her smokes and her ultimate are still in a good spot. They're still in a balanced spot, but they're not broken. The B tier is the B tier. It's the middle of the road. It's the balanced spot. It's the legends that are technically balanced. But in a game like Apex, you don't want to be balanced on a legend. You want to have something to help you out and to give you an edge. So that's why I'm putting Bangalore in the B tier, because she's just middle of the road again. The next legend is Catalyst. Now, Catalyst does have some situations where she is just unbeatable, and those spikes and the ultimate can go super hard, but most of the time that's on a map like Stormpoint or Olympus. So if the map rotation isn't in favor of Catalyst, she isn't getting as much usefulness. Other maps aren't really that strong for Catalyst. She likes to have those open spaces where she can really get usefulness out of her wall and allow her team a safe space to play, especially in endgame situations. So on maps like E-District, where she doesn't really get the same usefulness out of her wall, it does kind of nerf her slightly. But again, she's just a balanced legend, so that's why I have her in the B tier. The next legend find themselves here is Revenant. Now, Revenant has seen a little bit of a drop in his usefulness because of the nerfs that have been hitting him. His ultimate is still nothing to scoff at. He is still very strong, and with the Pathfinder nerfs, I can see him coming a little bit back into the more aggressive team comps over Pathfinder. But with so many nerfs to his kit, and now with the supports being super meta, any damage he really does get in his initial jump just kind of gets mitigated by the support meta. He jumps in, does a little bit of damage, maybe gets a knock, and then has to jump back out or he's going to die. And as he jumps out, the supports are able to just get that person that he knocked back up. The playstyle that Revenant wants is a harassment playstyle, and that doesn't fit in the support meta that we have going on right now. So that's why I have him in the B tier instead of anything else. Now, the next legend is probably going to be the most controversial legend on this tier list, and that is going to be Mirage. Now, I know a lot of people are going to be screaming at their computer screens or phone screens or whatever, saying Mirage just got a huge buff. He's able to do so much now. Why is he a B tier legend? And it's for one simple reason. His kit still sucks. Mirage's base kit is awful. It's easily counterable. It doesn't do a whole lot. It leaves gaps in team comps. It's just not useful. The only thing that is bringing Mirage from D tier into B tier is the Renaissance Man class perk. Being able to hit everything on the map is very, very strong, and I want people to understand that. Being able to open up both supply bins and the assault bins, scan the recon beacon, scan the zone beacon, and scan care packages to get a little bit more information is strong, and that's why he's in B tier, because that balances out how bad his base kit is. And yes, I understand he goes invisible while healing now, but that has a cooldown and it's really not that strong. I've played Mirage a decent amount since the patch has actually come out, and I can still tell you that Mirage does not feel good to play. His kit is just too easily counterable. There's so many things that he just cannot do that other legends can do, and you're better off picking a better support and balancing your team comp around that. But now we can move into the next legend, and that is going to be Rampart. Now, Rampart does like this meta a little bit because the charge rifle is now super strong and she's able to just deal so much damage with a fully automatic charge rifle, but she still falls into the same issues that she has had before. It is very hard for a Rampart to actually set up her walls if the team that you are fighting against knows what they're doing. If they see that there's a Rampart, they're not going to let the Rampart set up. They're going to focus her out, and as soon as she puts a wall down, they're going to break it while it's still weak, and they're just going to not let her do anything. That's what's keeping Rampart in B tier. If her walls were like insta deploy or had a little bit more health and were easy to set up or something along those lines, she could definitely move up the ranks. But because Rampart is so easy to single out and to deal with before her walls are even up, that's why I'm keeping her in the B tier, because everything else about her kit is still really good. The walls are strong when they're set up. Sheila is strong when you actually get to spin it up, but Rampart is just too much of a glass cannon, so that's why I'm putting her in B tier. But next up we have Valkyrie, and Valkyrie is seeing a little bit of a comeback because on certain maps like E District, she's a little bit more useful than the redeploy balloons. On other maps like Olympus, not as much, but the redeploy balloons are still good. Valkyrie's still very good, but when you're able to kind of pair them together, they can do a lot of work in terms of recon. Having the purple perk that allows you to see through walls and get that information as you're skydiving is very strong as Valkyrie. And just being able to redeploy your entire team at a moment's notice when you actually are able to get it off is still very strong. Being that school bus for zone style team comps is very strong as well. But like I've mentioned before, the B tier is the balanced tier. There's nothing really about Valkyrie's kit that makes her strong or just gives her an edge of the competition, so that's why I'm keeping her in B tier. And the last legend in B tier is going to be Wraith. Now, Wraith was an S tier legend for such a long time, but the reason for that is she was able to do what no other legends were able to do. She was able to play split and be extremely safe while doing so. That's about it. Wraith had so much solo potential, that's what was keeping her in the S tier. But now there's a bunch of other legends that are able to kind of play on their own, play split, do that well, and be safe while doing it. Wraith does fall out of the meta a little bit. But that's not to say that Wraith is a bad legend, because she still has a very solid foundation on her kit. That's why I'm putting her in B tier. It's pretty basic. There's not a whole lot that I can say about Wraith because she's been in the game since the game came out. Everybody knows Wraith's kit. Everybody knows what Wraith does. B tier. But now we can move on into the A tier, and there are 8 legends here. We've got Ashe, Bloodhound, Conduit, Mad Maggie, Gibraltar, Lifeline, Caustic, and Watson. Now starting off, we have Ashe, and she has been jumping all over the place. Some metas, she's really good. Other metas, she's really bad. And right now, I do think she is in a decent spot once again. I was solo queuing a lot at the start of the season, and I was using Ashe, and I was able to go into Diamond 2 solo queuing within the first week of the split being out. And I know some people that are solo queuers are going to be like, wow, that's actually pretty impressive, because getting into Diamond 2 as a solo queuer when everybody's doing that initial push is still really hard. But I was using Ashe and I was loving it. The tether is just so good at countering the support meta, because if they're trying to res and use a Newcastle to pull them out, or they're resing and a Lifeline is just trying to run away, Ashe can keep them in that one spot and use grenades more effectively, team fire more effectively, and just do a bunch of things more effectively. And her portal isn't the best option in the game when it does come to relocating an entire team, but if you're able to use it more offensively instead of defensively, it's a little bit of a better option. It's an instant move over to a new location to get other angles and also use a different spot for the tethers. That's how you kind of have to play Ashe, and that's when Ashe really kind of gets unlocked a little bit more. I do think that Ashe is kind of the one that is going to be jumping around constantly in tier lists, but right now I do feel confident in putting her in A. Now next up we have Bloodhound, and like I mentioned when I was talking with Seer, scan characters are still good, but the reason that I have Bloodhound in A tier, not anything lower, is that Bloodhound can still be aggressive and can still fit well in this meta that is a little bit more catered towards being aggressive because of their ultimate. Once Bloodhound is able to pop that ultimate and get in someone's face, it's really hard to get them down or to deal with them because they're moving incredibly fast, they're strafing fast, they're running fast, everything about them is just aggressive. And with the changes to Bloodhound's class perks where the Bravens are able to now spawn anywhere and you don't have to have a certain distance between you and an enemy team, and you can just keep constantly getting your ultimate back without popping ultimate accelerants, that keeps Bloodhound in such an aggressive state constantly, and that's why I think Bloodhound is still a very solid A tier legend, just doesn't see a ton of play in the meta. Next up we have Conduit, and Conduit is still Conduit. She's still very strong. She's able to basically reset fights while the fight is still going. She's able to keep your team aggressive. She's able to cut off certain angles with her ultimate. She's able to funnel teams. She's able to do so many different things. It's not even funny, and she is a support legend, so she gets the support buffs and the support aggressiveness with the healing. It's very strong, and still Conduit is still a very solid option. So that's why I'm keeping her in the A tier, but she's not busted like she used to be, so not S tier, but A tier. Now next up we have Mad Maggie, and Maggie is what Fuse wants to be. Maggie's able to cause chaos and make it so that teams aren't able to play one spot and they're not able to be a cohesive ball against Mad Maggie. She's able to cause so much space to not be playable and to be aggressive. It's what Fuse wants to do. She just does it better because her kit is instant, like I mentioned before. Fuse has some playability around it, but Maggie's ball, as soon as it hits you, you're shell shocked, you're slowed, you're not able to kind of move around as fast as you want to. Her drill, as soon as it hits the wall, it's burning you, so if you're trying to heal behind it, you have to move. Because it's instant, that makes Mad Maggie so much of a better character. And with shotguns being so strong right now, she pairs with those so well. She's in someone's face, she's dealing a bunch of damage, she's auto reloading on knocks, she's just continuing to shoot. It's what Mad Maggie wants to do, and that's why she's an A tier legend. It's not S tier because Maggie still has some issues with her kit where the ball isn't as consistent as it should be, but if they're able to work those out, I don't see any issues why Maggie couldn't go into the S tier. Now next up we have Gibraltar and Lifeline, and I kind of want to talk about these guys together because they're both legends that could be in the S tier, and I could definitely see an argument for it, but the reason that I have these two in A tier is because they basically do the same job, but the reason that they're A tier not S tier is that they rely heavily on the other support that's on the team comp. On their own, if they're the only support on a team comp, they're not super strong. They're A tier, not S tier. But when they start to go into that S tier category is when you pair them with another support. If you have them with each other or with a Newcastle, then they are ridiculously strong, and that's what people think that they're S tier for. But they have so many issues in getting singled out that they rely heavily on the other support to keep them safe in that fight. If a Gibraltar does get singled out and has to blow his dome, that's a huge ticket item that is now out of the fight that Gibraltar doesn't have for a long time, that teams can play around and just win the fight based off of that. Same with the Lifeline. If she's forced to use her Halo early in the fight, that is huge for the enemy team. But if you're able to stagger the cooldowns, Gibraltar bubble, Lifeline ult, Gibraltar bubble again, then it's a much different story. And that's why I have these guys in the A tier, because they do rely on the other legends, but the other legends are still in the meta, and it is meta to run 3 supports on a team, so you can balance these pretty easily. But as soon as you take that one Jenga piece out, the entire tower falls, so that's why I have these guys in A tier. And next up we have the 2 control legends, Caustic and Watson, in this tier, and I'm going to talk about these guys together as well because they do basically the same job, just different looks. Caustic is probably my go-to right now to counter the support meta, because if a Lifeline or Gibraltar use their dome, you just slide in with a Caustic ult, drop it, and they can't play inside of it, and now you have that dome to play yourself. But Watson also has a very strong spot in the meta because right now we're seeing again a lot of spammable abilities being used, and Watson's ult counters that extremely well. So both these legends do have their gives and takes, their drawbacks, their ups, their downs, stuff like that, but they're also both not bad in the meta. Being able to have a spot where a team can't push you is incredibly strong, and especially now in the support meta, if you're pairing them with a support class legend, teams are going to have a very tough time pushing you and actually flushing you out of your building or your spot to play. And if you get these guys into endgame situations, you control so much real estate with them that's very hard to lose a game when you're actually playing properly. So that is why I'm putting these two in the A tier. But now we can move into the next tier, which is the secretly broken tier. These are legends that are going under the radar that people are not going to be respecting and they need to start respecting. And in this tier, I've got one legend that's moving back into it, and that is going to be Alter. Now, I am on the Alter train 100%. I think Alter is a legend that has such a high skill ceiling and allows your team to do so much, it's not even funny. You guys gotta remember, I was the ones that was telling you about Newcastle seasons before everyone else started to pick him up. So when I tell you that Alter's strong, I do have some legs to stand on here. Alter's Q has so much different playability with it. You can kidnap people, you can take high ground from people, you can go in and out of buildings very easily. You can even play buildings that should not be playable in endgame situations because there's no door to run out of, so typically you die to zone, but you can sit in a very safe spot until the zone closes on top of you, and then you just alter portal out while the other teams are fighting, and you take the third party and win. And on top of that, now being able to have two ultimates so you can jump into different spots constantly is insane, and they don't time out now. She has so much potential in her kit, and she allows your team to be so free and take some really stupid fights because if things go south, you just get out for free. And if you pair her with like a Caustic or a Watson and people try to follow you back through your portals, they just die instantly and get you some free KP. Alter is insane, and I cannot wait until people actually start to pick up on this, so she's in the secretly broken tier. But now we can talk about the S tier. These are the top legends, the broken ones, the ones that you need to be keeping an eye out for this season and potentially even swapping to. There are three legends here. We got Loba, Horizon, and Newcastle. First off, Loba just got everything and the kitchen sink thrown at her kit this season. She is so strong, it's not even funny. Landing and having your ultimate immediately helps for your 50-50 contestants, because if you land, throw the Loba ult down, you get exactly what you need, you can push the other team before they've even had a chance to loot, and you've got basically all you need to fight. They're ready to go. She also has the bracelet, which is a great escape tool. Now even better, you get a speed boost when you use it, you draw your weapon faster, and you regen 50 shield when you're using it. So much built into one tiny little thing to help you be aggressive, escape, do whatever you need to do. It's great. Loba is the go-to legend for solo queuers again, and she's just an S tier legend once again. Her kit, fantastic, because they just buffed the crap out of it. But the next legend in the S tier is Horizon. They did some silent patches on Horizon. They didn't mention these in the patch notes at all, but they did make her Q a little bit stronger. And Horizon's kit already wasn't that bad. She was an A tier legend, but making her Q even stronger, having that gravity lift in your back pocket constantly is just always good. Her black hole, really strong for winning fights. Horizon is just one of those legends that's super annoying in metas. I hate when Horizon is strong because she's a super crutch character in my opinion, but I cannot deny that she is a good legend right now, so I gotta put her in the S tier. And the last legend in the S tier is obviously Newcastle. Newcastle is still just an absolute beast in the meta. They did not touch his kit whatsoever. I am expecting a super hard nerf coming in next season, but I don't think they were able to kind of get it ready for this patch, so they just didn't touch the supports and they just left Newcastle how he is. But for right now, he's still a super strong legend. He's still an S tier legend, so I gotta give him his credit and I gotta keep him in the S tier. His kit just deals with everything. There's no situation that a Newcastle can find himself in where he doesn't have an answer for it. It's just a one character does all toolbox. Everyone knows how strong Newcastle is. Everyone just understands what his kit does. S tier legend. But let me know, would you guys change these legend tiers in the comments down below? And if you guys want to stay up to date with the latest greatest Apex Legends tips, tricks, and news, don't forget to smash the like and subscribe button. Thank you all for watching. Once again, I'm 8 Second Gaming. I'll see you guys in the next one.